Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you all are doing great. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin for the day. We had a very brutal drop over the past couple of days. We had a swing high on Wednesday, which led to us kind of flipping bearish on some of the meso time frames. And then our daily is, finding some support off of the 21 of May, which is right in the middle of this order block right here. So that's a good sign. We also tested and are finding support off of the midnight Monday open, which is 62,798. So as long as we can stay above there, honestly, I have to assume that, we're probably made the high for the week, but we're at least going to stay, in probably within the 63 range would be my guess. Um, I would love for us to get back above the actual weekly open at 5 o'clock on Sunday, but it's at 63,750, and I don't know if that's extremely realistic given the day of the weekend that it is and the type of volatility that we've been getting. But that being said, my thought is that we're going to range between 62,865 and 63,752 for the remainder of the week. I don't think we're going to probably leave that range, or we could even say within this order block right here between 63.95-ish and 63.527. I don't think we're going to see a lot of movement anymore. I think that we've kind of gotten the expansions that we needed for the week. We had a bullish expansion up. We're getting a bearish kind of expansion down. I think it's going to be a bearish doji, is my guess, is how this is going to close for the week. And that's going to not, looking at a weekly perspective, it's not the best sign, right? But as long as we keep, and I've told you guys this, as long as we keep the weekly 200 MA, we have to be open-minded to the fact that we could get a reversal, okay? Meaning, on the macro time frames, we could be reversing trend, to the upside. So I would say as long as we keep that weekly 200, that's going to be my line in the sand there. I have to be open-minded that we could be, accumulating and potentially reversing trend. Okay. Taking a look at the 12 hour, not too much different there. 8 hour, you're kind of getting back above the 50, which is good. You found some resistance off of what is this, 100? 80, sorry, 80 MA. And again, that shows that order block that we were able to find support off of in the middle. You're bouncing off of the 4 hour 200 MA, which is an amazing sign. And honestly, this would be a place that you could potentially long from. You get tweezer bottoms like this, and it's right off of the 4 hour 200. Very, very high risk because we are going into the weekend, but there's a potential that this could play out where you're coming back and at least, testing weekly open, maybe. Not 100% sure, but definitely something to think about there. Um, let's see, taking a look at the 1 hour. So the 1 hour, you know, we wiped out this double bottom right here, which was interesting. I mean, we did, in my opinion, we did dive deep enough to get a reversal of some sort. I don't know how far that reversal is going to take you, but like I said, my guess is maybe to the top of this order block right here, taking out this wick. So you'd be looking at maybe around 63.5-ish area. We could potentially, like I also said, test weekly open at 63.750. So that's another area that's on the table. But I do think that right now it's time for at least a small reversal if we're going to get it. Okay. Taking a look at the 15, yeah, so getting above the 50 and the 21, that's a good sign. The 10, kind of the same thing. We're getting our moving averages tight again, so it could technically, it could have a move up potentially. Or you want to see the 5 minute get that golden cross where the 21 crosses over the 200, and the 50 as well. You're getting all your moving averages tight. Your 1 minute you got back above the 200, about to get the golden cross. So, I mean, it's looking decent, guys. I think that this might be the bottom for the day, but again, we're gonna have to take a look and see. That's, we got the 7-8, kind of a 786 retracement here. You'd probably have to pull from this one, I guess. Yeah, see, I can visually see kind of where these retracements are, and also, because of my support lines, I kind of know where price will potentially bounce from, right? So, it retested that 62,865 support line, found support, and now it's bouncing away from it. Um, so really, I mean, it's overall, it's showing a sign of a reversal on the micro time frames at least. As long as on your meso, as long as you don't lose that 4-hour 200 MA, that's been my line in the sand, and I gotta say that I'm gonna be bullish until you lose that, right? I know that we got rejected off of the 6-hour, which was definitely bearish. But you have to think how many people are shorting this head and shoulder pattern right here, thinking that we're gonna go way down here. Yes, it could definitely happen probably next week if we're going to do it. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think our bottom is in, personally, but again, that's based off of a timing perspective. But how many people would be shorting this, right? Because it looks like a head and shoulders. That gives the market makers a perfect excuse to rip this thing back up, right? So, the whole thing is with me is that yes, I see the trend. I try to identify it based off of the bigger time frames, the smaller time frames, etc. But I also am psychologically thinking how I can counter trade everybody all the time, right? And part of that goes along with, if it's an obvious bear pattern, yes, if you're in a premium, that's going to break down, but you have to look at where we're at on a macro scale. I mean, we're in a discount, right? This is a discount from our all-time high. You can look at it any type of way, but even when we were in the 80s, we're in a discount. And what I told you guys in regards to discount price action is, you know, bear flags can break up bullishly because when you're in a discount, that's what happens, right? And same with if you're in a premium, bull flags can break down into bear flags, right? So whenever we see, some of these bearish patterns, you also have to keep in mind the premium and discount areas that you're in, okay? So just a little tidbit of information that I wanted to throw out there for today. Let's go ahead and take a look at liquidity and see where we're at. So as far as from a support and resistance perspective, I am leaning that we've bottomed for the week. I think that this was just a retracement that was needed, but I'm more so expecting us to chop around and so maybe slowly work our way up for the weekend. Okay, but let's take a look in liquidity and our order book and see how realistic that is. Okay. All right, so when it comes to liquidity, let's take a look at our 4-hour. So we definitely have some more below us. I do get that, but we did take out this block right here. And usually, even, this can be a bridge to lead down lower, but we're getting some strong support off of after taking out this liquidity. This could have been enough liquidity that we needed to take out. In addition to that, I believe this is another 786, which it is, perfectly practically from this low to this high. So, there's a potential that we get our move up. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if we're going to get a pump for this weekend. I really hope we don't, but we could get a slow move up for the week, for the remainder of the week at least. Um, could we visit this? Absolutely. I would hope that we visit it though at the beginning of next week if we need to. Okay. But for right now, I'm looking at a slow move up, even at the very most, to, like I said, the weekly open. Okay. Let's take a look at the 1-hour. So the 1-hour, let's see here. Um, okay, so let's uncheck some of these. And I'm not doing aggregation today because I want to see everything for right now. So the 1-hour, you definitely have the ability to come back up here, right? And this isn't even telling me that we have the ability to get to 63.37, which would be right above weekly open, I believe. So we could test weekly open again, see where what happens with that. We could use it as resistance basically. So that's kind of the area I'm targeting, which would be around the 1-hour 200 MA. We could technically get above that, and we have some bridges to come back up as well. I don't know how possible that is though. You can get up to even to 65,000. It's really going to depend on if there's any sort of bullish, move that's supposed to happen this weekend. Your trend of indicator is not giving you any sort of indication at all as to where, price is trending. Everything's at a zero. So, for right now, I'm thinking a slow reversal back up. That's kind of my, mindset here. Um, your 15-minute shows that you can get, well, almost even to 65.6 if you wanted to. Um, for right now, you would be potentially expecting a rejection off of that 200 MA right there. But so far, guys, I'm seeing, getting closer to 64,000 that we could potentially retest before we either consolidate or we have a move back down, which is decent for the week. I would love to see the week even close a bullish doji if possible, but, realistically, from a timing perspective, I am expecting that bearish doji, not by a lot, but I am expecting it to close below weekly open, unfortunately. So, your order book is telling us that there are some orders down here to 62.3. Definitely could come down. I would expect for us to make that slow move up first because of how much liquidity we took out and we're using it as support. So my, current assumption, like I've been telling you guys, is a slow move up. But again, watch out for the 64K area. That's going to be a point of resistance for us for right now. Let's take a look at the simple map finally to see where we're at. So the simple map does show that, we've taken out majority of that 100x liquidity. We do have some 100x longs down here. However, there is more, closer liquidity to the upside when it comes to the 5, the 15, the hourly. You could get, again, it's showing that 63.8 area as a peak, right? So we could get up to there before we get some challenges. I'm expecting anywhere between 63.8 and 64,000 currently if we do make that move up. Making the move down, obviously, you'd be looking at around the 62,000 area even, or even worse than that, down to 61K potentially if we really start getting bearish. But for right now, you have to assume the slow move up. And then as regarding your swing time frames, your 4 hour and your daily, you are seeing, some we took out a lot of this liquidity. We're no longer at any sort of area where there's some high bars to the downside, right? Like what we saw last night. So you have to assume that for right now, we're going to start taking out some of this liquidity that's nearby us, that's bigger, right? Even though there's a very low amount of it. But, again, 63.8, 63, 64,000 even is kind of your target, okay? So everything is lining up for a slow grind upwards. Just be careful as to where, if you are taking a long, again, not financial advice ever, but if you are taking a long, just make sure that you're aware of the risk and where to potentially take profit based off of these levels. So, anyways, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day today. Enjoy your Friday. Get ready for the weekend. And I will talk to you later on this evening. But have a great day, everyone. Take care.